Welcome back, Journeyers. I'm your excessively humble host, Damien, and today we're going to be going over a couple malfunctions and how to get our sidearms back into battery. While we've got you here, if you wouldn't mind hopping up over to that subscribe button, really means the world to us over here at the Concealed Journey. It really does. Oh man, sometimes you have days where nothing is going right and all you run into is examples of malfunctions, and other times you just can't seem to set one up. So typically with like a flat nose round, I don't notice this in 9mm too often. As far as the projectile, the round itself, the cartridge is concerned, I don't have a lot of failures to feed based on the ammo type. But what I have noticed is on some of my magazines where you have follower issues with maybe your training in the sand, you get sand down in the magazine, and that follower is having trouble lifting the rounds up to properly feed them into the chamber. I've noticed some issues with some failures to function in that regard. So that would be in a case where that follower isn't properly lifting the rounds up into the chamber here, and it'll nosedive into the feed ramp actually. And let's see if we can set one of these up. Take a look at that. So we've got a little bit of a failure to feed there. And at this case and point in time, now, depending on your experience level actually shooting a handgun, you know, these guns, they kind of talk to you in a way, right? They talk to you in a way, not only audio, but also tactily, right? You can feel how this gun isn't properly functioning, right? So if I try to let the slide go home, I can feel that it doesn't all the way fit into battery, right? Which is another thing we're going to cover here in a little bit. And battery is the home position. Home, all the way home in its proper shooting form. That's battery, that's home. Whenever we refer to it, that's what we mean, is that the slide properly went forward, chambered the round, and is ready to fire. I can feel when this occurs. You can also see it as you're shooting, right? I can see that the slide is not into battery, right? And I can see that the chamber is open with that failure to feed poking its face out of the chamber right there. So in this case, typically what we're going to cover is going to be a tap rack bang system. Tap rack bang, we're going to tap on the bottom of the mag well. That's ensuring that the magazine is fully seated, because if for some reason you ever had that magazine just not quite click in, then that could be another reason why you're going to run into these malfunctions, because the ammo doesn't have the proper dimensions it's designed for to feed that ammo properly into the chamber. So we're going to tap first. Right. Second step to that is going to be rack. Now, we're going to get into the actual minutia of tap rack and bang, specifically the racking portion as well. And that's going to cover a couple of different manual of arms here. Typically, we're going to come over the top of the slide and we're just going to rack the slide, right? Wonderful. Another malfunction. So we're going to rack the slide, and then the bang would be to proceed to fire. But in this case where I racked and that failure to feed turned into a stovepipe, then we have to repeat the actual rack practice. I think it's a little redundant to tap again, but it's kind of ingrained into my muscle memory to do that tap rack again. So I'm going to tap, I'm going to rack, and then notice probably around here that we still have an issue. At that point in time, tap. That's a redundant feature, but to ensure, once again, maybe it's still the magazine not being seated. Secondly, with a stovepipe, we're going to run our hand up over the top, mating flush with the top of the slide here, and sliding our hand back rearward, hoping to catch that stovepipe round and drag it out of there. What you don't want to do, it's quite inefficient, is to actually sit here and lock the slide open and then peel that round out. That's not what we're going to do. So let me simulate this stovepipe again. Stovepipe. Could be projectile facing downward or projectile facing upward. Either way, we've got ourselves a stovepipe. Stovepipe in shooting, we're going to wrap our hand around the top of the slide, making contact with that brass there, and rip it out, right? And at this case and point in time, let's see, we have another round chambered. Bam, good to go, everything's good. Bang, tap rack bang. So that's discussing a failure to feed, and also a stovepipe. Here's projectile upward. Same case, principle and practice. We're going to wrap our hand up over the top of the slide, ensuring that we don't go beyond the muzzle, right? That we don't come over the front and over the muzzle like so. We want to just skate along the edge of the gun the whole way, making contact with that round and stripping it out. Now we have another brass cap, snap cap, chambered in here again. The third malfunction that we're going to cover is going to be a failure to extract. Failure to extract could come into play based on a couple of different reasons. One reason may be potentially that you've got some grimy brass, some debris in the chamber. It could be that it's an overpowered round and that the brass has swollen to the inside of the chamber. Or maybe, potentially a little bit more likely, is that you've got some extractor issues, whether it be brass flakes stuck in between the actual tooth of the extractor itself. You could have a bad extractor spring, a multitude of different reasons. So we'll set one of those up and we'll show you what that looks like. So here we have our failure to extract. So the brass that is closest to you, snap cap, that is closest to you is going to be the one that failed to extract. In this given situation, that's likely an extractor issue, not necessarily an overpowered round, because then that brass would have swollen inside the chamber and it wouldn't have even coming out that far. So we have our brass that has failed to extract, and now underneath it we have the new round that is trying to be fed up and into the chamber, but that stinky bad brass ain't coming out of there. So this is about what one of these malfunctions is going to look like. This is a failure to extract, and that top brass that's closest to you right now is the brass specifically that failed to extract, and underneath that we have the new round that is being lifted in our magazine, getting ready to go into the chamber, but that brass that failed to extract is in its way. So here, the next procedure is going to be, once again, tap, right, because we need to make sure that the mag is still seated. Then realizing, oh no, we've got a failure to extract that has actually turned into a double feed issue. At this point in time, we need to lock this slide to the rear because we have constant tension from two directions in this malfunction. We have the pressure from the follower and magazine lifting up that new round, and we have the tension of the recoil spring driving that slide into the back of the fresh round, locking in that unextracted brass in the chamber. So we need to lock the slide to the rear. We're going to do that by, if you have front serrations, super helpful. Whatever, let's say you don't. I conveniently have an RMR here as a point of leverage, but we're going to grab our serrations, in which almost every single modern handgun has, these rear serrations, drive them to the rear while we lift up on our magazine, stop, catch, release, whatever, however you'd like to call it. We're going to lift up on that while driving rearward. Bam, cool. Slide is now locked to the rear, and we're going to eject this magazine. And as you saw there, just by taking that little bit of pressure off of there, that brass that failed to extract has fallen free. But we're going to pull this whole magazine free and clear, right? And you see there, it's just sitting there. So we're going to make sure that we clear the chamber and the mag well of any other debris or obstructions, okay? Boom, that's all clear, good to go. We can reinsert our magazine and get back into the fight. Wonderful. Right, so then next we're going to talk about getting this slide back into the action, right? Back home, fully chambered, seated, into battery. So as we load a magazine into our handgun with the slide locked to the rear, this would be, let's say, after a reload per se, potentially. A lot of different ways you could set up this specific scenario, but we have our slide locked to the rear and fresh ammo on its way in. On the left side of your handgun, given whatever model it is, most of them, not the vast majority of them, are going to have a slide release on the left side of the handgun. So from this angle, you can see that we're going to load this new magazine into our magwell, fresh ammunition, and our thumb is conveniently placed on the slide catch, or slide stop, or slide release. A lot of different ways you can name this thing. They're all interchangeable. Don't troll us on that either. I mean, come on, guys, right? So anyways, our thumb is going to be placed on the slide release, and we're just going to press that down and then get back into aiming, shooting, whatever we're doing, right? That's one way to do that. Another way to do it is going to be as we insert this new fresh mag, we can then go over the top with our support hand and grip as much of this meat as possible. Like I had already said before, is that most modern handguns are going to have serrations at least on the rear. So we're going to grip that on the rear, driving rearward with the slide while pressing forward with our grip of our shooting hand, countering each other, right? So that we release this slide at its most rearward position, giving this recoil spring optimal tension to drive that slide back home, chambering that round, like so. And then we're back in the fight. That was number 2. The third way to do it is going to be fresh mag, unloaded gun. We're going to take this fresh mag, we're going to drive it into the mag well, and then use our support hand thumb to drop the slide release and then get back into the action. These are just a couple of variants on how you can do it. Practice all of them. See which one works best for you. See which one is going to be the most efficient. Whatever works on you, let's say biologically, right? Because if you've got really short thumbs and you can't reach that, or it really takes you too much time to break your grip and then get back on after you press that, those are things that you just need to work out personally in your own practice. Maybe coming over the top is the best way for you to do it, because you can get a ton of grip on it. You have that reverse leverage and you're able to action the slide so much better that way. It's up to you, and that's where the practice comes in. In my experience, this is going to be the fastest, most efficient way to do that, actually, is just using your shooter thumb to release the slide forward after, let's say, a reload, or you've just cleared a malfunction and you're gassing it back up again. If we could ask that you hit that bell button, stay notified when we're dropping some new content. Get down in the comments section too. Let's talk about the things that we're discussing here. If there's anything that you find contradictory or potentially even wrong, we'll see. And constructive criticism is absolutely welcome here, but please just leave that negativity out of here. We don't really need that. We're trying to propagate some positive gun culture here. And hit that like button. I mean, it really shows the stats. It really lets us know what you folks are appreciating, what you're not, what to bring more of, and what to bring less of for future videos. That'd be fantastic.